Greetings YouTube viewers, this is Caleb Buckley and I'm on the channel Supporting School Leaders, and this video is about time management for school leaders. Now, I have my own strategies I've developed over time. I've been doing school leadership for 20 years now. I also developed a lot of time-saving principles as a teacher, and a lot of administrators come through the teaching profession, and so maybe I should address why teachers make poor administrators in terms of time management. But first of all, let me give you some pointers, and I am going to mention some specific companies and software packages and approaches. I don't have any affiliation with them. This isn't an endorsement of them other than the fact that I use them. And if they, give you a cash reward for using them, make sure you tell them you learned on this video. So let's think about our schedule. So administrators have a really hard time with time management. And the reason for that is that so many things come at you at once, and often people don't have a gatekeeper. So number one is that you really need a gatekeeper to be able to streamline communication. Even the White House has a chief of staff, and the chief of staff is the most important person in that White House. They're the one that controls who comes in and out and sees the president. I know George W. Bush used to have 15-minute increments that his chief of staff would run his schedule on. Even if it was drinking a cup of tea, there was a fraction of 15 minutes that went into that. Now, you really do have to think about who has access to you and for how long. One of the ways the gatekeeper can help is by having days that are structured and unstructured. So some of the days can be days that you are available, your door is open, you have free time, it's drop-in office hours. I recommend one day a week where people know they can find you, even if that's just part of a day after school where you're in the faculty lounge or you're in the office at the cooler, whatever it may be. If people know that you have downtime. See, a lot of people think about scheduling their time like everything has to be scheduled. What you have to do is schedule unscheduled time. And if people know that you have unscheduled time, they will find you in those moments and leave you alone for the scheduled time. So this gatekeeper has to have your scheduled and unscheduled time. If people want to see you on those other days, they should really make appointments. This is one of the pieces of advice I got through a training called the Breakthrough Coach, which I'm a huge disciple of. It's a very Zen approach to keeping your office and how you interact with people and do your schedule. So the Breakthrough Coach is a great training if you can get it, if it's coming to a town near you. Another tool that I use for evaluations, which for me take up a lot of time, and it's very hard to get to because they're not always a fire that's burning that you have to put out. But I have been using a software program called Small Improvements. It's a little German company, and they even have a non-profit rate where they'll give you, so many free users if you beseech them with your non-profit status. So looking at that tool, we try to set up quarterly goals for employees and have a system where they can do a self-evaluation, self-reflection every quarter, and then their managers can do an evaluation at the end of that quarter, and they can kind of compare how they rated each other. I always offer an in-person meeting if people want that, but it's a good tool so that even if I'm remote at a conference or if I'm busy in between meetings, I can hop on and do a reflection review on a fellow employee. It saves me a lot of time scheduling meetings. Another thing that really helps with scheduling your day is keeping a diary. And a lot of people use diaries for the wrong reason. Let's get back to the original reason. The diary is there to record your day. It's not there for things that you have planned. I'm not a big proponent of putting out a lot of to-do lists and having tons and tons of things that you have to get done that you'll never get done, that just kind of hang over you like a ball and chain. Rather, what I like to do is write down the things that have been accomplished during that day. And you can either write them down as you're accomplishing them, or sometimes if you have a reflective practice at the end of the day, keep that diary with you and write down some of the things you did. And to me, this is sort of a practice like appreciative inquiry, where you are appreciating and inquiring about what worked well in your schedule, and you're writing that down and replicating it. So keep a diary about how you're doing in time management, sort of Benjamin Franklin style, right? You want this virtue of time management, and you're recording every day how you did in that and what were the things that supported you in managing your time. The third thing I really want to say is that management is all about routines, right? If you're trained to be an athlete, you need an exercise routine. If you're dieting, you need to stop your snacking routine. So if you're trying to manage your time, you need a new routine. And for an adult, if you've already been working for a while, say, a dozen years, it may take you 3 months to develop a new routine. Now, if you're 5 years old, you're going to develop a routine in like 3 days. But because we're old and our habits are ingrained, like we have to have a sip of tea every couple minutes, that habit's going to die hard. So think about what you need to put into place so that 90 days from now you can have a new routine. And some people are morning people, some people are evening people, some people like to take breaks. I know for me, I'm a bit of an anomaly because I'm a morning person and a night person. And I always say it's the time in between I have trouble with. But I do like to be the first one up in the morning. I do like to get to work early. I like to see kids coming to school. I like to get my own kids ready early. I think if you can do some things early and feel like you've really seized the day and made your goals, that's an awesome routine. I also have an evening routine where I like to be the last one around, the last one to record what happened that day. And so for me, what I need in my routine that I've developed is to try to take more breaks during the day, to have that longer lunch, to have that walk, to be reflective, and to get things, imaginatively moving. So I'm kind of working on problems, even if it's connecting with family or friends during the day a little bit. I know that I've given my all before and after my traditional hours. So I've developed a routine in how to take breaks, how to come back to something, how to let something rest. And I think beyond number 3, the routine, and number 1, having the gatekeeper, and number 2, having your diary, what you really need is number 4, and that is a solution to your emails. And there are lots of books and websites, and I'm sure tons of videos written about how to deal with email. But here's the problem, that most people show up to work and they open their laptop and they see that they've received 20 or 30 emails. Maybe some of them are spam or some of them need to be responded to. And then they forward one of those emails to a coworker and say, oh, can you handle this? Or they send a message to all the employees saying, oh, here's a topic that we all need to talk about. And see, the problem is you've just made your whole organization terribly inefficient because you've sucked up all of your time in the morning doing something that you thought was work. And in the meantime, you've sent out an email and you've probably created 7 other emails in your organization now to deal with all of that. So again, I go back to having scheduled time and have people schedule meetings with you and bring questions that they need answered so that you can make a decision and they can leave with a decision instead of having an inbox full of things for you to look at. And going back to number 1, that gatekeeper, if you have someone who, as an executive assistant, let's say, or an office manager, or someone in another role that can take on addressing the clerical tasks of emails. And 90% of your emails are things that if someone knew roughly your thinking on most subjects, they could respond or get back to someone or file them away. There is a fancy way in Microsoft Outlook, for example, that if certain emails come in from certain addresses, they go into specific folders, and then you can have a time on your schedule when you look at those various folders. I recommend acquiring that skill or having an assistant with that skill. So you really have to, number 4, address the email bis, because you will come into that email inbox and you will stay there for an hour or 2, and you will close that and think that you've done work. And that is not work as an educational leader. An educational leader is working with to help students achieve. And how do you do that? By empowering teachers and administrators and being on site and having large impact decisions and managing teams and consulting and coaching and mentoring and doing all those things, cajoling, praising, discarding, replacing, all those verbs that make up the leadership tasks. But emailing should not be included in that set. So I really want to encourage you, as you're developing new routines and you're managing your time, look at your time pie chart. And this would be my final thing I'll say in this video, is that every once in a while, maybe it's quarterly when you're doing your own self-evaluation for your board or your supervisor, and just sit down and look at your schedule and make yourself a pie chart and see what are the things I've spent the most time on. And then compare that with your job description. And you might ask, if your supervisor is a board, you might ask your board, write for me a pie chart on what areas you'd like me to be spending the most of my time. And then take that study and do it yourself as a self-study and write down, how are you spending most of your time? And I bet you 9 times out of 10 what you will find is that you are spending most of your time on emailing, on being interrupted, on not crisis issues, but things that weren't dealt with soon enough, topic for another video. But mostly you are spending time on clerical tasks. You're basically the highest paid clerical employee, and you're doing things that are not management. And I had a coworker once that said, whenever you're in doubt about whether or not as an educational leader you should be focused on something, just ask yourself what that same issue would look like from 30,000 feet. What is the bird's eye view? What is the plane flying over that issue see as the connectedness and what's going to change? So definitely, as you are planning your time management, look back at your diary, look back at your schedule, and just come up with a pie chart. And is it 20% email and 10% meetings? Is it 5% being on site? Is it 8% free time? I often say that a lot of the conversations that I have informally of just running into people saves me a lot of my time on the organized part, where I have to have meetings and policies and people and notes. And so have that balance of informal time. But is that reflected in your schedule as a priority? Is student learning reflected? You might set yourself 5 or 6 goals based on your job description. Go back through your pie chart of how you spent your time and attach one of those goals to each of those items. And then ask yourself, you know, are there things that can be delegated and tasks that someone else can do that's not on this list? Now I've been in the situation where I've had to go back to a board or a supervisor sometimes and say, hey, you know, I'm really struggling because here, for example, you want me to be spending 50% of my time on fundraising, but I'm spending 50% of my time on dealing with personnel issues. And so I either need to hire someone to do the fundraising or get the HR manager to handle some of these issues. So you need to figure out structurally and organizationally where those items fit, and they might not necessarily be on your plate, but on your supervisory plate from 30,000 feet. So I hope that's been helpful. Definitely get that gatekeeper, definitely stay off of email, definitely have some time management that you experience through your diary, and have some kind of pie chart that you track things, and then know who you are. When you have your reflective practice, don't fight yourself on a routine so much to form a habit that's going to be impossible for you to break. You know, if you drink a cup of coffee every day at 2 o'clock, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe that's something that works for you. Why make yourself and everyone around you miserable by giving up that cup of coffee? Same thing with, is there something in your schedule that really gives you juice? If you love being on the playground at recess, or if there's a class you're teaching, you've got a little math group you're working with, keep that going, because you also need time for inspiration. One of my other videos, I talk about the importance of reading during your day and having other people see you in focused concentration. Okay, that's enough for now. Thank you very much for watching. Supporting School Leaders is the channel. Dr. Caleb Buckley, and this has been my advice for time management. I hope it helps out school leaders if you're just starting or if you have some ingrained habits you need to change. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.